He laughed. Not a quiet laugh, not the kind you keep to yourself. It was loud, sharp, intentional, the kind that echoes through a room, turns heads, and dares you to respond. But you didn't. You didn't need to. Because the moment he laughed, the energy around him shifted, and he didn't even feel it. He thought he won, thought he was the center of attention, thought mocking you was entertainment. But what he didn't realize, what none of them realized, is that there are certain people you don't laugh at, certain energies you don't disrespect, certain souls you should never test. You were one of them. The room laughed with him, thinking it was a game. But that laugh, that was the trigger. That was the moment the balance started to shift. Not just for you, but for him. He stood there, feeding off the spotlight he built out of arrogance. His words came with a smirk, each one dipped in mockery, crafted to cut. He didn't raise his voice to be heard. He raised it because he needed people to notice him, because he was feeding off attention, feeding off what he thought was dominance. But the truth is, when someone has to prove their power, it's because they never really had it. And that's what made him dangerous, not his confidence, but his desperation. You, on the other hand, didn't say a word. You just stood there, still, present. Not because you didn't know what to say, but because you knew something bigger was already speaking on your behalf. Something ancient, something unshakable. And while he laughed, you listened. Not to him, to the shift. Because when the chosen are tested, the universe doesn't stay silent for long. What he didn't understand is this. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't mock. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. And the moment he laughed at you, he placed himself in opposition to something that's never lost. He became the example, the cautionary tale, the very thing the universe uses to demonstrate what happens when arrogance meets alignment. And from that moment on, it wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about watching him reveal everything wrong within himself. They always make the same mistake. They see someone who doesn't react, who doesn't fight back, who doesn't rush to defend themselves, and they assume it's weakness. They assume silence means fear. They assume humility means helplessness. But chosen ones don't move on impulse. They move in rhythm. You were never ignoring what was happening. You were analyzing it, every word, every tone, every shift in the atmosphere. You were watching not because you were unsure, but because you were aligned. And alignment doesn't move for chaos. It waits for confirmation. While he flexed for attention, you stood rooted in intention. And that's the difference. He spoke to be heard. You moved to be felt. He thought it was about wit, about who could speak louder, faster, with more flair. But that's not where real strength lives. Real strength is silent. It's quiet preparation. It's knowing who you are so deeply that you don't flinch when someone tries to convince the world you're not enough. And while he kept throwing jabs, kept cracking jokes, kept pointing at what he thought made you less, the universe was already rewriting the scene. He thought he was putting on a show, but he was exposing himself. Because the more he talked, the more obvious it became that he wasn't laughing at you. He was trying to silence his own fear. Fear of what you might become if you ever decided to speak, if you ever decided to rise. And everyone else in the room? They followed his lead. Because it's easy to laugh when someone else is the target. Easy to join the joke when you don't understand the price. But the joke wasn't on you. It was never on you. It was on them. For not recognizing what stood in front of them. For thinking presence needed permission. For assuming that because you weren't fighting, you were losing. But you weren't. You were observing. You were aligning. You were waiting for the shift you already knew was coming. And now, it's here. They couldn't feel it, but you could. That subtle drop in energy, that sudden quiet that follows forced laughter, that moment when the crowd realizes the joke isn't landing the way it used to. That's where it started, the unraveling, the recalibration. He didn't know it yet, but something was already moving against him. Not because you asked for it, not because you cursed him or plotted revenge, but because there are certain people the universe protects. Not loudly, not violently, but undeniably. And you're one of them. You could see it in the way he carried himself, chest out, voice raised, eyes scanning the room for approval, every move designed to make himself look bigger. But real power doesn't need performance. Real power exists whether people clap or not. He thought the room was on his side, but the room was just afraid to speak, afraid to be the one to say, "This isn't funny," afraid to acknowledge that what he was doing wasn't strength. It was insecurity in a mask. And deep down, he knew it. That's why he kept going, kept pushing. Because if he stopped talking, he might have heard the silence. And the silence would have told him the truth. He was losing ground. But you didn't react. You didn't bite. You just watched. And your stillness? That's what shook him, because he couldn't read it, couldn't control it, couldn't dominate it. And that scared him more than anything. Because people like him don't know how to handle the unbothered. They only know how to handle chaos. But you weren't chaotic. You were calm, collected, covered. And now the very silence they laughed at is becoming the echo that surrounds him. You never had to say a word. Your energy spoke volumes. It said, "I see you." It said, "I don't need to fight you." It said, "This isn't my battle. It's your exposure." And now, with every passing moment, with every awkward glance, with every fake smile faltering in the crowd, it's becoming more obvious. He didn't mess with just anybody. He messed with a chosen one. And the laugh that started this all? It's fading fast. Because when divine timing hits, laughter doesn't last long. They thought your silence meant you were finished. They thought you walked away because you were afraid. But what they never stopped to consider was that chosen ones don't walk away to escape. They walk away to recalibrate. You weren't retreating. You were resetting. You weren't disappearing. You were being aligned. And alignment isn't about noise. It's not about clapping back or proving a point. It's about listening, not to them, but to the deeper voice that's always guided you. And while they laughed and mocked and carried on like they'd won something, something ancient was already responding. Not with chaos, with precision. Because the universe doesn't need theatrics to move. It just needs silence. And when you're chosen, silence isn't passive. It's sacred. You didn't flinch. You didn't argue. You didn't explain. Because you knew there was nothing to prove. You were covered, watched, protected by a force that doesn't answer to public opinion. While they were loud in their disrespect, you were wrapped in something invisible to them. They saw someone unbothered and assumed that meant weak. But being unbothered is a form of power they'll never understand. Because most people scream when they feel disrespected. Most people retaliate when their name is dragged. But you remained still. And in that stillness, the real work was happening. Your silence wasn't you backing down. It was you stepping aside so the system could do what it does best. Correct. They didn't feel it at first. The subtle shift, the beginning of the unraveling. But you did. Because when you're chosen, you're sensitive to movement. Not emotional outbursts, but energetic shifts. And the moment he laughed at you, the moment he disrespected the calling on your life, something in the atmosphere changed. The balance tipped. And though it didn't look like it at first, it was already in motion. The response, the restoration, the correction. You didn't need to lift a hand. You just needed to remain aligned. And that's exactly what you did. He didn't see it coming. None of them did. Because people who operate in arrogance are always blind to alignment. They think as long as they're loud, they're winning. But winning doesn't come from volume. It comes from vibration. And yours was steady, unshaken. The very presence they mocked is now the presence they can't ignore. They don't know why, but the room doesn't feel the same when you walk in anymore. The laughter has stopped. The fake smiles are tighter now. The confidence they once had in putting you down has started to crumble, because energy doesn't lie. And now yours is speaking louder than any insult ever could. It starts slowly, the unraveling. First, it's the little things. Things that once came easy for him begin to resist. The same charm he used to manipulate others begins to falter. His words lose their grip. His plans don't land like they used to. And the people, they start pulling away. Not because you said anything, but because energy speaks before words ever can, and something in his doesn't feel right anymore. He's trying to keep it together, trying to maintain the show, but the cracks are forming, and they're getting louder. He feels it first in silence, in the quiet moments when no one's around to boost his ego. That creeping sense that things aren't adding up, that maybe the joke didn't land like he thought, that maybe, just maybe, mocking you came with a cost. He brushes it off at first. Arrogance always does. But then the missed opportunities begin. The tension in rooms that used to embrace him. The phone calls that stop coming. The looks people give him now. Curious, cautious, questioning. He doesn't know it yet, but the energy around him is shifting. Not because you attacked, but because the balance is being restored. And here's the truth he never saw coming. The downfall he's experiencing isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's the system responding. Because you didn't just let his actions slide. You placed them in the hands of something greater. You stepped out of the way and let alignment speak for you. And alignment never misses. While he was mocking you, the universe was preparing a response. And not one that screams or threatens. A response that unravels. Piece by piece. Thread by thread, until the very identity he built on falsehoods begins to collapse under the weight of truth. Now he's scrambling, trying to hold it together, trying to figure out what went wrong, but nothing went wrong. Everything's going exactly how it should, because this is what happens when you touch something sacred without understanding what it's connected to. He didn't just insult you, he insulted the assignment on your life. He mocked a mission he couldn't comprehend. And when you do that to someone who's chosen, you don't walk away clean. You walk away marked, not by punishment, but by correction. He's starting to see it now. The mirror is being held up, and what's reflecting back isn't you. It's him, his intentions, his insecurities, his shadow. Because what he tried to project onto you is now staring him in the face. The same words he threw, echoing back, the same shame he tried to place on you, hanging heavy over him. He wanted you to break, but the only thing that's breaking is the illusion he built around himself. And the worst part for him? You didn't do a thing. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't retaliate. You just stayed grounded. And that's what undid him. Everyone around him feels it too. They can't explain it. Can't point to one moment where it all fell apart. But they feel the weight now, the unease, the shift in the air. They used to laugh with him. Now they watch him. They sense something's off, something they can't deny anymore. And it's all coming from the energy he disrespected, the presence he mocked, the purpose he underestimated. He tried to make you the punchline, tried to humiliate you publicly, thought it was funny, thought it was power. But the only punchline now is this. The same presence he tried to ridicule is now the presence haunting his every step. Because the chosen don't get even, they get elevated. And the higher you rise, the clearer it becomes. His downfall didn't come from your hands. It came from his own. Triggered by a laugh that echoed just a little too long. A laugh that will never sound the same again. It always starts with denial. He tells himself nothing's wrong. That what's slipping through his fingers is just a fluke. That the same charm that used to open doors still holds its power. That the silence around him is just temporary. But he knows, somewhere beneath the surface of all that ego, he knows. The shift has started, and it's not subtle anymore. Plans he was so sure of are crumbling in real time. People he once commanded with ease now hesitate, their loyalty cracking, their admiration dimming. The same words he used to control the room are landing with empty echoes, and he can feel it, not just around him, but inside. A disorientation, a panic, a deep, unsettled knowing that he crossed a line he never should have approached, and there's no going back now. Every time he tries to move like he used to, it backfires. The confidence looks forced, the swagger, now a performance with no audience. And the people who used to laugh at his jokes now laugh nervously, unsure of why the atmosphere feels different, why his voice doesn't hit the same, why being around him feels heavier. uncomfortable, like something is off, even if they can't say exactly what. But he knows. He remembers the moment it began. He remembers the laugh, the look in your eye when you didn't respond, the way you stood still, not because you were scared, but because you were being still for something bigger to move. And now it's moving, through him, around him, against him. The collapse doesn't come all at once. That would be too easy, too obvious. No, it's gradual, like watching bricks loosen in a wall you thought was solid. It starts with confidence, his, now full of holes. Then his influence, once strong, now fading. Then come the whispers, not the kind he used to start about you. These are different. These whispers question his integrity, his motives, his presence. Whispers that wonder why everything he touches is turning to dust. Whispers that carry more truth than he can handle. And the weight of that truth is suffocating, because he thought he was untouchable, thought he could move through life unchecked. But the universe checks everything. Eventually, you didn't have to lift a finger. That's the part that haunts him the most. You didn't curse him, didn't expose him, didn't even respond, but your silence triggered something his ego couldn't handle, something that began unraveling everything he built out of manipulation. The cracks keep widening, the facade keeps slipping, and every attempt he makes to hold it together only speeds up the collapse. He's becoming a stranger to his own reflection. The same confidence he used to weaponize now betrays him. The mask he wore so proudly now suffocates him. And you haven't said a word. You didn't need to. Because when you're chosen, the energy around you doesn't seek revenge. It restores order. Now he's stuck watching the very person he tried to belittle rise. And it's not just that you're rising, it's how. Effortlessly, peacefully, powerfully, without noise, without drama, just presence. And that's what eats at him most, because you're not trying to destroy him. You're not even thinking about him. You're just walking in the light he tried so hard to dim. And every step you take, every win you collect, every space you step into without apology, it's a reminder, not just of what he did, but of who you are. And that's the real consequence. Not that you fought back, but that you didn't have to. Your existence became the correction. He's realizing now that you were never his enemy. He was his own. You were just the mirror, the reflection that exposed his insecurity, the presence that made his false confidence unravel. And now, no matter how many times he tries to rebuild the image he once maintained, it collapses. Because the foundation was always hollow. It was built on other people's silence, on manipulation, intimidation, arrogance. And when he tried that on you, it backfired. Not because you were louder, but because you were real. And real energy always outlasts fake power. He thought it would end when the room went quiet, thought the silence meant he'd won. But the silence wasn't the end. It was the beginning, because silence isn't the absence of movement. It's the preparation before the shift, and now that shift has fully arrived. The alignment has taken its place. What once felt like control is slipping like water through his fingers. The plans, the influence, the facade, it's all disintegrating, slowly, painfully, precisely. And you're still rising, not rushing, not forcing, just aligned, just becoming. And the gap between who he pretended to be and who you truly are is growing too wide to ignore. He watches now, from the outside, the same place he tried to push you into. He watches as the rooms that once laughed at you begin to make space for you, as your name finds its way into conversations he can't control, as your light once mocked becomes the standard others are drawn to, and he doesn't understand how it happened. How the one he dismissed is now the one being elevated. But you do, because you knew the whole time. You knew what silence meant. You knew what alignment required. And now, while he wrestles with the consequences of his choices, you walk in the fulfillment of your purpose. And that is the loudest response of all. They're all watching now. Not with amusement, not with arrogance, not with that smug confidence they once wore so comfortably. Now they watch with unease, with quiet confusion, with a sense they can't quite name but can no longer ignore. Something shifted, and it didn't come with explosions or declarations. It came through your presence. The same presence they once laughed at, the same energy they tried to shrink, mock, dismiss. You're not yelling, you're not clapping back, you're not even referencing the disrespect, but you're being seen, and it's undeniable. The same ones who looked through you like you were invisible now can't stop watching. The room changes when you enter, the atmosphere bends, conversations shift, and suddenly your silence isn't silence anymore. It's weight, it's power, it's proof. They don't understand how it happened, how you went from the one they counted out to the one they can't ignore, how the story flipped without you needing to explain, justify, or expose anyone. But that's how divine alignment works. It doesn't beg for recognition. It doesn't scream to be heard. It simply becomes, and you have become, fully, unapologetically, powerfully. Every step you take now carries evidence, not of revenge, not of bitterness, but of restoration. You didn't return to prove them wrong. You rose because it was already written, and what they thought was the finish line was just your reset button. They're whispering now, but not about your silence, about your strength, about how you're moving in places they swore you'd never be, about how your name is on lips that used to avoid it, about how the glow they laughed at is now blinding in its intensity. They thought you were fragile, thought you were forgettable, but the glow they once mocked is now too loud to look past. And what terrifies them most is the realization that they were wrong, that they misjudged you, that they misunderstood your stillness, your softness, your silence, that they had front row seats to something sacred and laughed it away. And now all they can do is watch it unfold without them. The beauty of it is that you didn't need to announce your comeback. You didn't ask to be acknowledged. You didn't fight for the stage. You let purpose do what it was always going to do, place you exactly where you belong. And now that placement is undeniable. The rooms they tried to lock you out of have opened in your favor. The doors they swore were sealed have swung wide, not because of force, but because of frequency. You weren't chasing access. You were building alignment. And now alignment is opening what manipulation never could. The more they watch, the more uncomfortable they become. Not because you've done anything to them, but because your elevation is a mirror. It reflects everything they tried to suppress in you and exposes everything they never developed in themselves. Your glow isn't just beauty, it's consequence, not a weapon, but a witness. A reminder that what's meant for someone can't be blocked, buried, or broken by human hands. You weren't supposed to stay quiet forever. You were supposed to rise when the timing was perfect. And now that timing has arrived, loud, clear, untouchable. They'll rewrite the story, pretend they always believed, pretend they saw your potential from the beginning. Some of them will try to reattach themselves to your journey, try to act like they played a part in your growth. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember the nights they laughed while you were healing. You'll remember how they rolled their eyes when you spoke your vision, how they counted your grace as weakness, how they mistook your compassion for naivety. And now they see what you always carried, but it's too late to borrow it, because it was never theirs to share. It was coded for you, and now it's activated. This isn't revenge, it's restoration. This isn't noise, it's legacy. And the most powerful part of all, you didn't have to destroy anything. You just had to become. And what you've become is more than they ever expected, more than they can handle, and more than they can replicate. Because you weren't built in the spotlight. You were forged in silence. And the glow you wear now is the result of battles they never saw, scars they never respected, and growth they never believed in. But now, belief isn't optional, because evidence doesn't ask for permission. It simply is. You've crossed into a space where applause isn't necessary, where validation is irrelevant, because you've arrived, fully, authentically, undeniably. You are no longer the subject of their doubt. You're the standard of what real elevation looks like. Quiet, purposeful, aligned, And that's the lesson they never saw coming, that you didn't rise by revenge, you rose by design. And when something is divinely designed, no one can delay it, no one can block it, and no one, not even the loudest critic, can stop it from being seen. This is the closure they never expected, the consequence they never saw coming. You didn't need to explain what they did wrong. Life did that for you. You didn't need to plot. You didn't need to clap back. You didn't even need to tell your side of the story. The shift told it for you. And now they're living in a reality shaped by their own misalignment, while you keep walking in one shaped by grace, elevation, and undeniable purpose. You are the story now, not the joke, not the background character. You are the blueprint, the walking proof that silence is sacred, that alignment is stronger than attention, that the chosen ones may be mocked at first, but they are always remembered last. And when they are remembered, it's never for the laughs they endured, it's for the rise they embodied, quietly, fully, unshakably.